In the 1980s, America declared war on fat. Butter became the enemy. Eggs were suspect. Red meat was practically criminal. Grocery stores filled with bright labels screaming low fat, fat-free, light. We were told this was the path to better health. So we listened. We swapped whole milk for skim. We traded real food for processed substitutes. And while fat disappeared from the label, sugar quietly took its place. Yet obesity kept climbing. Diabetes kept spreading. If fat was the problem, why didn't things get better? And if we were following the rules, what went wrong? To understand how this happened, we have to go back to a time when cholesterol ruled the headlines. In the late 1970s and early 1980s, heart disease was the #1 killer in America. Researchers searched for answers. Some early studies suggested a link between saturated fat and heart disease. The message that reached the public was simple: fat clogs arteries. Fat causes heart attacks. Fat makes you sick. Simple messages spread fast. Government dietary guidelines followed. Americans were told to cut fat, especially saturated fat, especially animal fat. The food pyramid pushed grains to the bottom as the foundation. Bread, pasta, rice, eat plenty. Fats and oils, use sparingly. Media amplified the fear. Morning shows warned about cholesterol. Magazines ran covers about deadly bacon and butter. Eggs were treated like ticking time bombs. Margarine replaced butter in millions of kitchens. Fat became public enemy #1. Supermarkets changed almost overnight. Shelves filled with low-fat milk, low-fat yogurt, low-fat cookies, low-fat frozen dinners. Even snack cakes boasted 97% fat-free. It sounded scientific. It sounded safe. But something else was happening behind the scenes. When you remove fat from food, you remove flavor. Fat carries taste. It gives food richness, texture, satisfaction. Without it, food tastes flat, bland, boring. Food companies had a problem, so they solved it the easiest way possible. They added sugar. Sugar made low-fat food taste good again. High-fructose corn syrup became common. Extra sweeteners went into yogurt, into cereal, into sauces, into healthy snacks. If fat went down, sugar often went up. Calories didn't disappear. They changed form. A low-fat cookie might have had less fat than the original, but it often had more sugar, more refined flour, more additives to mimic texture. And because it said low-fat, people felt safe eating more of it. Yogurt is one of the clearest examples. Traditional full-fat yogurt was simple: milk, cultures, maybe fruit. Then came the low-fat versions. Fruit on the bottom turned into fruit mixed with sugar syrups. Some containers packed as much sugar as dessert, but the label said low-fat, so it felt healthy. Snackwell's cookies became a symbol of the era. Fat-free cookies sold in huge numbers. People joked about eating an entire box because, technically, they were healthy. The joke wasn't far from reality. The low-fat label gave permission. This is where psychology enters the story. When a product is labeled guilt-free, people eat more. When something says light or heart healthy, it lowers mental defenses. You think you're making a good choice. You feel virtuous. And when you feel virtuous, you relax. Portion sizes creep up. Second servings feel justified. A low-fat muffin doesn't feel like a threat. But if it's packed with sugar and refined carbs, your body doesn't care what the label says. Marketing understood this perfectly. Words like cholesterol-free, fat-free, and light became shields. They framed products as solutions to fear. The fear of heart disease, the fear of weight gain, the fear of doing something wrong. Food wasn't just food anymore. It was moral. You were either being good or bad. And good meant low fat. But the human body is not fooled by branding. Let's talk about fullness. When you eat fat and protein, your body sends signals that say, you're satisfied. Slow down. You're good. Fat digests slowly. It keeps you full longer. Protein does the same. Together, they stabilize energy. Sugar works differently. Refined carbs and added sugars digest quickly. They spike blood sugar. Insulin rises to deal with it. Then blood sugar drops. And when it drops, you feel hungry again. Sometimes shaky. Sometimes irritable. You crave more. That cycle, spike, crash, crave, keeps you eating. So imagine replacing satisfying fat with fast-digesting sugar. Meals become less filling. Hunger returns sooner. Snacking increases. You're not weak. You're responding to chemistry. Meanwhile, total calorie intake across the country rose. Portion sizes expanded. Sugary drinks became common. Low-fat snacks filled lunchboxes. And obesity rates climbed. By the 1990s and early 2000s, something didn't add up. Americans were eating less fat as a percentage of calories than before. Yet waistlines were growing. Type 2 diabetes cases were rising. If fat was the villain, why wasn't removing it fixing the problem? Researchers began taking a second look. New studies showed that not all fats were equal. Trans fats, heavily processed oils, were clearly harmful. But natural fats from foods like nuts, olive oil, fish, and even dairy were more complicated. Some were neutral, some were beneficial. The story wasn't black and white. At the same time, evidence grew about the impact of added sugars and ultra-processed foods. Sugary beverages were linked to weight gain. Highly refined carbs were tied to metabolic issues. The conversation slowly shifted. Dietary guidelines adjusted. Trans fats were targeted. The fear around eggs softened. Butter made a cautious comeback. Avocados became trendy instead of terrifying. But cultural habits don't disappear overnight. The low-fat mindset stuck around. Walk through a grocery store today, and you'll still see it. Low-fat yogurt, reduced-fat cheese, fat-free dressings. The words linger, even as science evolves. Why? Because simple villains are easy to sell. Fat is visible, greasy, tangible. Sugar hides. It dissolves. It blends in. It doesn't look threatening. And for decades, we were trained to fear fat first. To be clear, this isn't a call to drown everything in butter. It's not a defense of unlimited bacon. It's about context. Whole foods matter. Processing matters. Balance matters. An avocado is different from a deep-fried snack cake. A handful of nuts is different from a bag of flavored chips. The problem was never one nutrient in isolation. It was the oversimplified story. Nutrition is messy. Human biology is complex. But public health messages often need to be simple. So fat became the scapegoat. And once that idea took hold, it shaped an entire food system. Farmers grew more corn. Corn syrup flooded products. Low-fat lines expanded. Marketing budgets pushed the message further. Meanwhile, people did what they were told. They avoided egg yolks. They scraped grease off pizza. They bought skim milk. They believed they were protecting their hearts. Some improvements did happen. Smoking rates declined. Medical care advanced. Heart disease death rates dropped for multiple reasons. But obesity and metabolic disease kept rising. That's the uncomfortable truth. We can't blame one nutrient for everything. We can't ignore behavior, environment, lifestyle, stress, and movement. But we can recognize that focusing on fat alone missed the bigger picture. It taught people to fear the wrong thing. The real issue was not fat in its natural form. It was ultra-processed food engineered for profit. It was excess. It was marketing that blurred lines between healthy and convenient. When food became a math equation, grams of fat, percentages of daily value, we lost sight of something simpler. Real food rarely needs a label screaming about what it doesn't contain. No one needs to advertise a raw almond as low-fat or high-fat. It just is. Today, nutrition conversations are shifting again. Some people embrace low-carb. Others go plant-based. Some focus on whole foods. Others track macros. The pendulum swings. But the lesson from the low-fat era remains. Be cautious of single villains. When one nutrient is blamed for everything, it's a sign the story is incomplete. Human health doesn't hinge on one molecule. It's shaped by patterns, by habits, by context. Fat was never the true enemy, and sugar isn't a demon either. Both can exist in a balanced diet. The danger lies in excess and distortion. In the 1980s, fear drove policy. Marketing amplified it. Consumers followed. The result was not the health revolution many expected. So what do we take from this? Labels are not the whole truth. Low-fat does not mean low-calorie. Fat-free does not mean healthy. And removing one ingredient doesn't automatically improve a product. When you zoom out, the story becomes clearer. The body needs fat. It needs protein. It needs carbohydrates. It needs fiber. It needs nutrients from foods that look like food. What it doesn't need is confusion wrapped in shiny packaging. The low-fat line never fully went away. It just blended into the background. It still whispers from shelf tags. It still shapes decisions in subtle ways.